It was 8:30 p.m. on a Tuesday when my life officially went to hell, and it all started with a drained car battery. The irony wasn't lost on me. After 15 years of marriage, I should have seen the warning signs. But there I was, standing in the rain with jumper cables in my hands, watching my Honda Civic refuse to start like it was making some kind of statement about my entire existence. My phone buzzed. Jessica, my wife of 15 years, texting from her gym. Pick me up in the Lexus. My session ran late. The Lexus, her precious white SUV that she treated better than she treated me. I grabbed the keys and drove through the rain, windshield wipers beating a rhythm that sounded suspiciously like fool, fool, fool. The Elite Fitness Center was one of those places where people paid $300 a month to sweat in style. All glass and chrome, with motivational quotes plastered on the walls like Band-Aids on a failing relationship. I parked and walked to the front desk, water dripping from my jacket onto their pristine floors. "I'm here to pick up Jessica Martinez," I told the young guy behind the counter. He had the kind of muscles that screamed, "I live at the gym," and the kind of smile that screamed, "I'm sleeping with your wife." "Oh, you must be here for this," he said, reaching behind the counter. "Her husband left this bag for her about an hour ago." I stared at the gym bag in his hands. "Her husband?" I asked slowly. "Yeah, tall guy, really built. Said to give it to Jessica when she finished her session with Tyler." I took the bag with hands that weren't quite steady. Through the glass partition, I could see into the main workout area. And there she was, my wife Jessica, laughing at something a tall, muscled guy was saying. Her hand was on his arm. His hand was on her waist. I'd been married to Jessica for 15 years, and I knew that laugh. It wasn't the laugh she used with me anymore. This was the laugh she used to use when we were dating, when she thought I was funny and charming and worth her time. The tall guy had to be Tyler, her trainer, the one she'd been mentioning for months. "Tyler says I should try this new protein shake. Tyler thinks I have great form. Tyler, Tyler, Tyler." I stood there for a full minute, watching my wife flirt with another man while some kid who looked like he bench-pressed Buicks told me that her husband had already been there. Most men would have stormed in. Most men would have made a scene. But I've never been most men. I spent 4 years in the Army before I became an IT consultant, and the Army taught me something valuable. When you're outnumbered and outgunned, you don't charge. You plan. So I smiled at the desk kid and said, "Thanks. I'll just wait for her to finish." Then I walked back to the Lexus, put the gym bag on the passenger seat, and wrote a note on the back of a receipt. "I saw everything. We need to talk. E." I left the note in the bag, zipped it up, and drove home. Our house was a 3-bedroom colonial in Maplewood Heights, the kind of neighborhood where everyone mowed their lawns on Saturday and pretended their marriages were perfect. I'd bought it 8 years ago when Jessica's real estate career started taking off. Back then, she said it was our dream home. Now it felt more like a museum. Beautiful, expensive, and completely lifeless. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat in my home office, staring at the wall of certifications and awards that proved I was good at my job. Cisco certifications, Microsoft partnerships, client testimonials. 15 years of building a successful IT consulting business. And for what? So my wife could use the money to pay for a gym membership that was really just an expensive way to meet her next boyfriend? My phone buzzed. "Jessica, where are you? I'm ready to go." I texted back, "Check your bag." Then I turned off my phone and poured another bourbon. She came home 20 minutes later. I heard the Lexus in the driveway, heard her key in the front door, heard her heels clicking on the hardwood floor as she searched the house for me. "Evan?" she called. "Evan, where are you?" I didn't answer. I sat in my office chair, bourbon in hand, and waited. She found me eventually. She always did. Jessica stood in the doorway of my office, still in her workout clothes. At 39, she was still beautiful, the kind of beautiful that made men turn their heads on the street. Blonde hair, green eyes, the kind of figure that expensive gym memberships and personal trainers could maintain. But standing there in my office doorway, holding my note in her hand, she looked different. Smaller. Guilty. "Evan," she said carefully, "we need to talk." "Do we?" I took a sip of bourbon. "Because according to the kid at your gym, your husband already stopped by tonight. Tall guy. Really built. That wouldn't be Tyler, would it?" Her face went white. "It's not what you think." "Really?" "Because I think my wife is having an affair with her personal trainer, and he's gotten comfortable enough to pretend to be her husband. But please, tell me what it really is." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. She stepped into the room, closing the door behind her like our 17-year-old daughter Maya might overhear us from her room upstairs. Maya, who was probably too busy with TikTok and Instagram to notice that her parents' marriage was imploding. "Okay," Jessica said, sitting down in the chair across from my desk. "Yes, Tyler and I have been close, but it's not what you think." Close. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's a nice word for it. Very clean, very real estate agent of you." "Don't be sarcastic, Evan. This is serious." "Oh, I'm taking it very seriously. Tell me, how long has Tyler been close to you?" She looked down at her hands. 3 months. 3 months. 90 days of coming home to me, kissing me goodnight, asking me about my day, all while she was screwing her trainer. 90 days of lies. "And how long were you planning to keep this going?" I asked. "I don't know," she said quietly. "I didn't plan for it to happen. It just did. Things like this don't just happen, Jess. You make choices. You chose to start working out with him. You chose to flirt with him. You chose to let him put his hands on you. You chose to let him pretend to be your husband." She looked up at me then, and I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. Fear. Good. She should be afraid. "What do you want me to say, Evan? That I'm sorry?" "I am. That it was a mistake?" "It was. That I'll end it?" "I will." "Will you?" I leaned back in my chair. "Because 3 months says otherwise. 3 months says you're pretty happy with your arrangement." "I'm not happy," she said. "I haven't been happy for a long time." And there it was. The truth that had been sitting between us for months like a landmine, waiting for someone to step on it. "So this is my fault," I said. "That's not what I said. But it's what you meant." Poor Jessica, trapped in a marriage with boring old Evan. Poor Jessica, so unhappy she had to find comfort in the arms of her muscle-bound trainer. "Stop it." "Stop what? Stop pointing out that you're a cliché? Stop mentioning that you threw away 15 years of marriage for a guy who probably can't spell commitment?" She stood up, her face flushing with anger. "You want to know why I did it? You really want to know?" "Enlighten me." "Because you stopped seeing me, Evan. You stopped talking to me, stopped touching me, stopped caring about anything except your computers and your clients and your bourbon. When was the last time you took me out to dinner? When was the last time you asked me about my day and actually listened to the answer? When was the last time you made me feel like I mattered?" I stared at her for a long moment. Then I finished my bourbon and set the glass down on my desk. "You know what, Jess? You're right. I did stop seeing you. But you want to know when that started? It started when you began treating me like a roommate who pays half the bills. It started when you stopped laughing at my jokes and started rolling your eyes instead. It started when you decided that your career was more important than our marriage, and I was just supposed to be okay with that. That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed again. "You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been talking to me about how you felt instead of running to the first guy who paid attention to you. Fair would have been marriage counseling. Fair would have been honesty." She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Once upon a time, that would have broken my heart. Once upon a time, I would have gotten up and held her and told her everything would be okay. But that was before I found out she'd been letting another man pretend to be her husband. "So what happens now?" she asked. I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Something that had been building for months, maybe years, and was just now crystallizing into something sharp and purposeful. "Now," I said, "you're going to find out what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "What's that supposed to mean?" I smiled, and even I could hear how cold it sounded. "It means, Jessica, that you have no idea who you've been married to." The next morning, Jessica acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee, kissed my cheek, and told me she had showings all day, like we hadn't just had the conversation that ended our marriage, like I hadn't caught her in a 3-month affair with a guy who called himself my wife's husband. But I'd learned something important about myself the night before, sitting in my office after she'd gone to bed. I'd learned that I wasn't heartbroken, I was angry. And anger, properly channeled, was much more useful than heartbreak. I waited until Jessica left for work, then called my business partner Dave to tell him I'd be working from home for a few days. Dave Martinez, no relation to my wife, despite the name, had been my partner for 8 years. He was the sales guy, I was the tech guy, and together we'd built a solid little IT consulting firm that specialized in small business network security. "Everything okay?" Dave asked. "Just some personal stuff I need to handle," I said. "Anything I can help with?" "Not unless you know a good divorce attorney." There was a pause. "Shit, man. I'm sorry. You want to talk about it?" "Not yet, but I might need some time off in the coming weeks." "Whatever you need, Evan. Take care of yourself." I hung up and got to work. But not on client projects. I had research to do. First, I pulled our credit card statements for the past 6 months. Amazing what you could learn about someone's life from their spending habits. $300 a month at Elite Fitness, lunch charges at restaurants I'd never been to, Victoria's Secret purchases that I'd never seen the results of, hotel charges that made my stomach turn, the Marriott downtown, the Hampton Inn on Route 9, the boutique hotel on Elm Street that advertised romantic getaways for couples, all on days when Jessica said she was showing properties to clients. I printed everything and put it in a folder. Evidence. The Army had taught me to document everything, and 15 years in IT had reinforced that lesson. If you couldn't prove it, it didn't happen. Next, I did some research on Tyler. Tyler Brennan, according to his Instagram account, which was public because he was apparently too stupid to understand privacy settings. 28 years old, certified personal trainer, aspiring fitness model. His feed was full of shirtless gym selfies and inspirational quotes about living your best life and taking what you deserve. What he'd taken was my wife. But Tyler's Instagram told me other things, too. He lived in an expensive apartment complex downtown. He drove a BMW. He wore designer clothes and expensive watches, all on a personal trainer's salary? I didn't think so. I dug deeper. Tyler had been married before, divorced 2 years ago. His ex-wife had gotten the house and half his assets, according to the public divorce records. So where was his money coming from now? I had a pretty good idea. My phone rang. The caller ID said Sabrina Walsh, Jessica's best friend and fellow real estate agent, the woman who'd been covering for my wife's affair for 3 months. "Hi, Evan," Sabrina said when I answered. "Is Jessica there?" "She's at work. Why?" "Oh, I just wanted to talk to her about something. No big deal." "Sabrina," I said, "can I ask you something?" "Sure." "How long have you known about Tyler?" There was a long pause. "I don't know what you mean." "I think you do. I think you've been helping Jessica lie to me for months. I think you've been covering for her when she goes to hotels with her trainer. I think you've been part of this from the beginning." "Evan, Don't lie to me, Sabrina. I already know the truth. The question is whether you want to keep being part of Jessica's mess when it all falls apart." Another pause. Then, "She's my friend, Evan. And I used to be your friend too. Remember that. I hung up and immediately called Jessica. "Hi, honey," she said when she answered. "What's up?" "Sabrina just called looking for you." "Oh? What did she want?" "I don't know, but I told her about Tyler." Silence. Then, "Evan, we agreed we were going to work this out." "No, Jessica. You said you were sorry and you'd end it. I never agreed to anything, and I've been thinking about what you said last night about how this is partly my fault because I stopped paying attention to you." "Okay. And you're right, I did stop paying attention. But you know what I realized? I stopped paying attention because there was nothing worth paying attention to. You became boring, Jess. Predictable. All you talked about was work and the gym and your friend Sabrina. You stopped being interesting. That's a horrible thing to say, but it's true, and now I know why you stopped being interesting. It's because you were saving all your interesting conversation for Tyler." "Evan, I'm not finished. You want to know what else I realized? I realized that I don't actually want to work this out. I don't want to go to counseling and talk about our feelings and pretend that we can fix 15 years of growing apart. You know what I want?" "What?" "I want you to understand what you threw away. I want Tyler to understand what he took. And I want everyone who helped you lie to me to understand what happens when you cross the wrong person." "You're scaring me." "Good. You should be scared, because the man you married, the one who let you walk all over him for years, he's gone, and you're not going to like who replaced him." I hung up and went back to work. By noon, I had a complete picture of my wife's affair. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges, gym records that I'd hacked from Elite Fitness's poorly secured customer database. Text messages that I'd recovered from her cloud backup. She'd forgotten that we shared an Apple ID. The messages were the worst part. Not because they were explicit, though some of them were, but because they showed me a version of my wife I hadn't seen in years. Playful, flirty, happy. "Can't wait to see you tonight," she'd texted Tyler 2 weeks ago. "Evan's working late again. His loss." "Your husband doesn't know what he has," Tyler had replied. "But I do." "Soon it won't matter what he knows," Jessica had written back. "Soon it won't matter what he knows." That was the message that changed everything. Because it told me that this wasn't just an affair. This was an exit strategy. Jessica wasn't just cheating on me. She was planning to leave me. She was planning to take half of everything I'd worked for and start a new life with her muscle-bound trainer. I poured myself a bourbon even though it wasn't even 1 p.m. yet, and started planning my response. The first thing I did was call my attorney, Richard Stone. Rick had handled the legal work when Dave and I started our business, and he'd been a friend ever since. "Evan," he said when his secretary put me through, "what can I do for you?" "I need to talk to you about protecting my assets in a divorce." "Jesus, I'm sorry to hear that. How bad is it?" "She's been having an affair for 3 months. I have documentation." "Good, that'll help. How much are we talking about in terms of assets?" I did some quick math in my head. The house, my share of the business, our retirement accounts, savings. About $2 million total. "Okay. The good news is that Massachusetts isn't a community property state, so we have some flexibility. The bad news is that she's entitled to a significant portion regardless of the affair. But with proof of adultery, we can probably limit her claim. How much proof do you have?" "Credit card records, hotel receipts, text messages, photos, enough to bury her." "Excellent. Can you come in tomorrow morning? We'll start the paperwork." "Actually, Rick, I want to wait a few weeks before we file anything official." "Why?" I took a sip of bourbon and smiled. "Because I want her to think she's getting away with it. I want her to get comfortable. And I want to make sure that when this all comes out, it comes out in the most public, humiliating way possible." Rick was quiet for a moment. "Evan, I understand you're angry, but revenge can be expensive, and it can backfire. Sometimes the best revenge is just winning cleanly." "Maybe. But I've been winning cleanly my whole life, and where has it gotten me? My wife is screwing her trainer and planning to take half my money when she leaves. I think it's time I tried a different approach." "What kind of approach?" I looked out the window at our perfect suburban street, where all the neighbors pretended their lives were perfect and their marriages were solid. The kind that makes sure everyone knows exactly who Jessica Martinez really is. Maya came home from school that afternoon with the kind of dramatic energy that only 17-year-old girls could generate. She burst through the front door like she was being chased, threw her backpack on the floor, and announced to the house in general that her life was over. "What happened?" I asked, looking up from my laptop where I'd been researching divorce attorneys and asset protection strategies. "Chloe Morrison is such a bastard," Maya said, throwing herself onto the couch with the theatrical flair of someone who'd learned everything about human emotion from TikTok videos. "She told everyone that I only got the lead in the spring musical because my mom sold her parents their house." "Did your mom sell her parents their house?" "That's not the point, Dad. The point is that she's trying to make it seem like I didn't earn it." I closed my laptop and really looked at my daughter for the first time in weeks. She had Jessica's blonde hair and green eyes, but she had my stubborn chin and my tendency to overthink everything. At 17, she was caught between wanting to be independent and still needing her parents, which made everything a crisis. "You know what I learned in the Army?" I said. Maya rolled her eyes. "Here we go with the Army stories. I learned that when someone attacks you, you have two choices. You can defend yourself, or you can go on the offensive. Defense is about proving you're not what they say you are. Offense is about making them regret they said it in the first place. So what are you saying I should do? Start a rumor about Chloe? I'm saying you should be so good at what you do that it doesn't matter what anyone says about how you got the opportunity. Make them eat their words by being undeniably talented." Maya considered this. "That's actually not terrible advice. I have my moments." She studied my face with the intensity that teenagers brought to everything they cared about. "Dad, are you okay? You seem different today?" Different. That was one way to put it. Just thinking about some changes I need to make. "What kind of changes?" Before I could answer, Jessica came home. I heard her car in the driveway, heard her heels on the front walk, heard her key in the door. But this time, I was listening for something else. I was listening for guilt. "Hi, family," Jessica called out, her voice bright and cheerful. Oscar-worthy performance, really. "Hi, Mom," Maya said, immediately switching from concerned daughter to typical teenager. "My life is over and Dad gave me weird Army advice about it." Jessica came into the living room, still in her work clothes. She looked beautiful and successful and completely composed. If I hadn't seen the hotel receipts and read the text messages, I might have believed that everything was normal. "What happened?" Jessica asked, sitting down next to Maya on the couch. As Maya launched into the story of Chloe Morrison's betrayal, I watched my wife's face. She was listening, nodding in the right places, making sympathetic sounds, playing the role of concerned mother while texting her lover behind my back for 3 months. "You know what?" Jessica said when Maya finished. "Chloe Morrison is just jealous. You're talented and beautiful and you earned that role. Don't let anyone make you doubt that." "See?" Maya said, looking at me. "That's better advice than your Army thing." "Different approaches," I said. "Your mom believes in building you up. I believe in tearing down anyone who tries to tear you down." Jessica looked at me sharply. "That seems a little harsh." "Does it? I think it's realistic. Some people only understand consequences." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means that sometimes being nice gets you walked on. Sometimes you have to show people that there's a price for treating you badly." Maya was looking back and forth between us like she was watching a tennis match. Teenagers had radar for parental tension, and I could see her picking up on the undercurrents in our conversation. "Are you guys fighting about something?" she asked. "No, sweetheart," Jessica said quickly. "Dad and I just have different philosophies about dealing with conflict." "Right," I said. "Mom believes in turning the other cheek. I believe in making sure people regret slapping the first one." That night, after Maya had gone upstairs to do homework and FaceTime her friends, Jessica and I sat in the living room like we did every evening. She was reading a real estate magazine, I was on my laptop. To anyone looking through our windows, we would have seemed like a normal married couple having a quiet evening at home. But I wasn't working on client projects. I was working on something much more interesting. I'd spent the afternoon building a comprehensive file on everyone involved in Jessica's deception. Not just Jessica and Tyler, but Sabrina too. And the more I dug, the more I found. Sabrina Walsh had been married and divorced twice. She had a reputation in the real estate community for being aggressive and not entirely ethical. She'd been reprimanded by the state licensing board 2 years ago for misrepresenting property conditions to buyers. She was currently dating a married man, a city councilman named Robert Hayes. All of this information was public record, but it was scattered across different databases and websites. Most people would never bother to connect the dots, but I wasn't most people. I was an IT consultant who specialized in data analysis and network security. Finding and connecting information was what I did for a living. "What are you working on?" Jessica asked, looking up from her magazine. "Client project," I said without looking up. "Database integration for a law firm." "Sounds boring." "It has its interesting moments." I kept typing. I'd found Tyler's financial records too, or at least the public parts of them. He'd filed for bankruptcy 3 years ago, right before his divorce. He'd lost his house, his car, everything. But now he was living in a luxury apartment and driving a BMW. The math didn't add up unless someone was helping him with his expenses. Someone like a successful real estate agent who was planning to leave her husband. "Evan," Jessica said, "about last night. I want you to know that I meant what I said about ending things with Tyler." I looked up from my laptop. She was watching me with those green eyes that had made me fall in love with her 20 years ago. She looked sincere. She looked sorry. She looked like a woman who regretted her mistakes and wanted to fix them. She was also a liar who'd been deceiving me for 3 months. "Did you end it today?" I asked. Not yet. But I will." "When?" "Soon. I need to figure out how to do it without making things awkward at the gym." "Awkward at the gym?" I closed my laptop. "That's your biggest concern, making things awkward at the gym." "That's not what I meant." "What did you mean?" She set down her magazine and turned to face me fully. "I meant that I need to handle this carefully. Tyler he's not going to take it well." "What's that supposed to mean?" "He's gotten very attached. He thinks we have a future together." I stared at my wife. "And what did you tell him about that?" She looked down at her hands. "I may have let him think that was a possibility. You may have let him think that was a possibility." I repeated her words slowly, tasting them like wine gone bad. "Jessica, did you tell Tyler that you were going to leave me?" Silence. "Jessica, did you tell your trainer that you were going to divorce me and be with him?" "It wasn't like that," she said quietly. "What was it like?" I was confused. I was unhappy. I said things I didn't mean. "What things?" "I told him that you and I were growing apart. I told him that I wasn't sure our marriage was going to work out." "What else?" "Evan, what else did you tell him, Jessica?" She looked up at me, and I saw tears in her eyes. But I also saw something else. I saw the look of someone who'd been caught and was trying to figure out how much trouble she was in. "I told him that I was thinking about asking you for a divorce." The words hung in the air between us like smoke from a house fire. I felt something cold and final settle in my chest. Not heartbreak, not even anger anymore. Just a kind of crystalline clarity about what I needed to do. "I see," I said. "But I didn't mean it," Jessica said quickly. I was caught up in the moment. I was feeling things I hadn't felt in years, and I got carried away." "You got carried away?" "Yes. For 3 months." "Yes." I nodded slowly. And Tyler? What did he say when you told him you might divorce me? Jessica wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. He said he'd wait for me. He said he'd help me through it. Help you through it how? I don't know. Just emotionally, I guess. Emotionally. I opened my laptop again. That's interesting. Because according to your text messages, he's been helping you financially too. Her face went white. What text messages? The ones you've been sending from your phone. The ones that are backed up to our shared cloud account. The ones where you talk about Tyler paying for your hotel rooms and your dinners and your new lingerie. Evan, I can explain. Can you? Because it looks to me like you've been planning to leave me for months, and you've been letting Tyler pay for your exit strategy. She was crying now, but I wasn't moved by her tears anymore. I'd seen her cry before, when her father died, when she miscarried our second child, when she was happy about Maya's acceptance to the honor society. Those tears had meant something. These tears were just damage control. What do you want me to say? She asked. I want you to tell me the truth, all of it. How long have you been planning to leave me? How much money has Tyler given you? What were you going to do? Wait until you had everything lined up and then blindside me with divorce papers. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw her make a decision. I saw her decide to stop pretending. Okay, she said. Yes, I was thinking about leaving you. Yes, Tyler and I talked about a future together. And yes, he's been helping me save money so I could afford to live on my own while we worked out the divorce. There it is, I said. The truth. But I changed my mind, she said quickly. When you confronted me last night, I realized what I was throwing away. I realized that I still love you, that our marriage is worth fighting for. I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and felt nothing but contempt. No, Jessica. You realized that you got caught. You realized that your exit strategy was blown, and now you're trying to salvage what you can. That's not true, isn't it? Because I don't think you're sorry about the affair. I think you're sorry you got caught. I don't think you want to save our marriage. I think you want to buy time to figure out your next move. She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I closed my laptop and stood up. Well, here's the thing, Jess. I'm not interested in being your backup plan. I'm not interested in marriage counseling or working through our issues or any of the other things you're about to suggest. You made your choice 3 months ago when you decided to start screwing Tyler. You made your choice when you decided to let him pay for your hotel rooms. You made your choice when you told him you were going to leave me. Evan, please. I'm not finished. You want to know what my choice is? My choice is to make sure that everyone, and I mean everyone, knows exactly who you are and what you did. Your friends, your clients, your boss, your family. Everyone is going to know that Jessica Martinez is a cheating liar who threw away her marriage for a gym rat with a bankruptcy record. You can't do that. I smiled, and I knew it wasn't a nice smile. Watch me. I started small. That's the key to a good campaign. You don't go nuclear right away. You start with precision strikes and let the chaos build organically. The next morning, I sent an anonymous email to the Elite Fitness corporate office. It was brief and professional. I thought you should know that one of your trainers, Tyler Brennan at the Maplewood location, has been having an inappropriate relationship with a married client. This has been going on for months and is creating a hostile environment for other members. You might want to look into this before it becomes a legal issue. I didn't sign it, and I sent it from a burner email account through a VPN. Untraceable but credible enough to get their attention. Then I called in sick to work and spent the day doing reconnaissance. I followed Jessica to her first showing of the day, a colonial in Westfield that was listed for $800,000. I parked across the street and watched her give a tour to a young couple with a baby. She was good at her job, I had to give her that. Professional, knowledgeable, charming. The couple seemed genuinely interested in the property. After they left, I walked up to the front door where Jessica was locking up. "How did it go?" I asked. She jumped like I'd fired a gun. "Evan, what are you doing here?" "I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd see how my wife's day was going." "You followed me. I drove by and saw your car. Is that a crime?" She looked around nervously, like she was expecting Tyler to jump out of the bushes. "We can't keep doing this, Evan. We can't keep fighting." "Who's fighting?" "I'm just checking on my wife's career. Speaking of which, how's Tyler? Did you talk to him yesterday like you promised?" Yes. We talked. And I told him we needed to cool things off. Cool things off. Not end them. Cool them off. It's complicated, Evan. He's not taking it well." I laughed. I bet he's not. Poor Tyler. He thought he was getting a sugar mama, and instead he's getting dumped. It's not like that. Isn't it? Tell me, Jess, how much money has Tyler borrowed from you over the past 3 months? She didn't answer, which told me everything I needed to know. "Let me guess," I said. "A few thousand for his rent. Maybe some money for his car payment, new clothes, expensive dinners, gym supplements. Am I getting warm?" "He's going through a difficult time financially. He's going through a difficult time financially because he's a 28-year-old personal trainer with a bankruptcy record and champagne tastes, and you've been enabling him because you thought you were going to ride off into the sunset together. You're being cruel." "I'm being realistic. Tyler isn't in love with you, Jessica. Tyler is in love with your bank account. And now that his meal ticket is being taken away, he's probably not going to be very understanding about your change of heart." For the first time since this whole thing started, I saw real fear in my wife's eyes. "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked. "It means that Tyler strikes me as the kind of guy who doesn't like to lose. And right now, he's losing his girlfriend, his financial support, and probably his job once the gym finds out about his inappropriate relationship with a client." "His job? Evan, what did you do?" I smiled. "I made a phone call. Anonymous tip to corporate about a trainer who was violating professional boundaries. They take that kind of thing very seriously these days. Liability issues, you know." Jessica's face went white. "You can't do that. Tyler needs that job." "Tyler should have thought about that before he started sleeping with married clients." "This is insane, Evan. You're trying to destroy his life over a mistake." "A mistake?" I stepped closer to her. "Jessica, he's been pretending to be your husband. He's been taking your money and planning a future with you while you were still married to me. That's not a mistake. That's a calculated decision to steal another man's wife. Nobody stole anybody. I made my own choices. Yes, you did. And now you get to live with the consequences of those choices." I turned and walked back to my car, leaving her standing in the driveway of the house she'd just shown. In my rearview mirror, I could see her on her phone, probably calling Tyler to warn him about what was coming. Too late for that. I drove to downtown Maplewood and parked outside the building where Sabrina Walsh worked. Premier Properties was one of the bigger real estate firms in the area, and Sabrina was one of their top agents. She specialized in high-end residential properties and had a reputation for being aggressive and results-oriented. She also had a reputation for sleeping with married men, but that was beside the point. I waited until I saw her come out for lunch, then followed her to a cafe on Main Street. She was meeting someone, a man in his 50s wearing an expensive suit and a wedding ring that he kept turning nervously with his thumb. Robert Hayes, the city councilman she'd been dating behind his wife's back. I took a table across the restaurant and listened to their conversation. They weren't being particularly discreet. Sabrina was upset about something, probably Jessica's situation, and Robert was trying to calm her down. "She's my best friend," Sabrina was saying. "I can't just abandon her now." "But if this gets out, it could hurt both of us," Robert replied. "My wife is already suspicious about my schedule. If she finds out I've been seeing you and you've been covering for Jessica's affair, it won't get out. Evan's angry, but he's not stupid. He won't want the public humiliation any more than Jessica does. I smiled and took out my phone. With a few taps, I activated the voice recording app and set it on the table between us. The microphone pointed in their direction. Besides, Sabrina continued, what's he going to do? He's a computer nerd. He fixes networks and installs software. He's not exactly a threat. I don't know, Robert said. Jessica seemed pretty shaken up when she called you yesterday. She said Evan was different, angrier than she'd ever seen him. Evan Martinez has been a pushover for as long as I've known him. Jessica's been walking all over him for years and he just takes it. This is just wounded pride. He'll calm down. And if he doesn't? Sabrina leaned across the table and lowered her voice. Then we'll deal with it. I know things about Evan that Jessica doesn't. Things that could make his life very difficult if he pushes too hard. That got my attention. I leaned forward, straining to hear. What kind of things? Robert asked. Let's just say that his business isn't as clean as it appears. There are some client contracts that might not look good under scrutiny. Some billing practices that could be considered questionable. Sabrina was talking about my business, the business I'd spent 15 years building from nothing, and she was threatening to make up lies about it to protect Jessica's affair. You'd really do that? Robert asked. To protect my friend? Absolutely. Evan needs to understand that he can't win this fight. The sooner he accepts that and agrees to a quiet divorce, the better off everyone will be. I turned off the recording app and sat back in my chair. So that was their plan. Jessica would play the victim, Sabrina would spread lies about my business practices, and I'd be forced to agree to a settlement that let everyone save face. They'd underestimated me once again. I paid my check and left the restaurant, but not before sending the audio recording to my own email account from 3 different anonymous addresses. Insurance, in case they tried to claim the recording was fake. Then I drove to Elite Fitness. The gym was busy with the lunch crowd, business people trying to squeeze in a quick workout, retirees taking advantage of off-peak hours, stay-at-home parents getting some time to themselves. I didn't see Tyler anywhere, but I did see the manager talking to someone at the front desk. I walked up to the counter and smiled at the young woman behind it. Hi, I said. I'm thinking about joining the gym, but I wanted to ask about your trainers. I heard you have someone named Tyler Brennan who's supposed to be really good? The girl looked uncomfortable. Actually, Tyler is no longer with us. Oh, that's too bad. Did he leave recently? This morning, actually. If you're interested in personal training, I can introduce you to some of our other trainers. What happened to Tyler? Did he find a better job? She glanced around nervously. I'm not really supposed to discuss personnel matters, but let's just say there were some policy violations. Policy violations? Inappropriate relationships with clients. We have very strict rules about that kind of thing. I nodded sympathetically. That's smart. You can't have trainers getting too close to their clients. Creates all sorts of problems. Exactly. Can I show you around the facility? Actually, let me think about it and get back to you. Thanks for your time. I left the gym and sat in my car for a few minutes, thinking. Tyler had been fired, which meant he'd lost his income and his access to the gym where he'd been meeting Jessica. He was probably panicking, which made him dangerous. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at Murphy's Bar on Route 9 at 8 p.m. Come alone. T. Tyler. He'd gotten my number somehow, probably from Jessica, and now he wanted a face-to-face meeting. This was either going to be an attempt at intimidation or an attempt at negotiation. Either way, it was going to be interesting. I texted back, I'll be there. Then I drove home to prepare for what was likely to be the most important conversation of my marriage. Murphy's Bar was the kind of place where construction workers drank beer after their shifts, and divorced men came to feel sorry for themselves. Dark wood, dim lighting, and the smell of cigarettes that had soaked into the walls back when smoking indoors was still legal. It wasn't the kind of place you'd expect to find a fitness model, but then again, Tyler's circumstances had changed dramatically in the past 24 hours. I got there at 7:45 and ordered a bourbon. The bartender was a thick-set guy in his 50s who looked like he'd heard every sob story in the book and wasn't impressed by any of them. Tyler showed up at exactly 8 p.m. He looked different than he had at the gym, less polished, more desperate. His expensive workout clothes had been replaced by jeans and a t-shirt, and there were dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept. He spotted me at the bar and walked over with the kind of swagger that was trying too hard to look confident. "Evan," he said, sliding onto the stool next to me. "Tyler." I didn't look at him. "Drink?" "Beer. Whatever's on tap." I signaled the bartender and ordered Tyler a Budweiser. We sat in silence until the beer arrived. "So," Tyler said finally, "here we are. Here we are. You got me fired. You got yourself fired. I just made sure the right people found out about it." Tyler took a long pull of his beer. "You know, Jessica told me a lot about you over the past few months." "I'm sure she did. She said you were boring, predictable, the kind of guy who never took risks, never fought for what he wanted." I turned to look at him for the first time. Up close, he was younger than I'd thought. Mid-20s maybe. Old enough to know better, but young enough to think he was invincible. "And what do you think now?" I asked. "Now, I think she was wrong about the boring part. But right about the rest?" Tyler smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "That's what we're here to find out." The bartender moved to the other end of the bar, giving us privacy. The few other customers were absorbed in their own conversations or the baseball game on TV. "What do you want, Tyler?" "I want you to back off." "Back off from what?" "From Jessica, from me, from whatever game you think you're playing." I laughed. "Game? You think this is a game?" "I think you're trying to punish Jessica for being honest about her feelings. I think you're trying to destroy my life because you can't handle the fact that your wife found someone better." "Someone better." I took a sip of bourbon. "Is that what you think you are?" "I know what I am. I'm the guy who made Jessica happy. I'm the guy who made her feel alive again. I'm the guy who was there for her when you were too busy with your computers to notice that your marriage was falling apart. You're also the guy who's been living off her money for 3 months. Tyler's face flushed. That's not how it was. No? How was it then? Jessica wanted to help me. She knew I was going through a rough patch financially, and she offered to help out. That's what people do when they care about each other. People who care about each other don't lie and sneak around. People who care about each other don't let the woman pay for hotel rooms while she's still married to someone else. You want to talk about lying? What about the lies you've been telling yourself for years? What about pretending that your marriage was fine when Jessica was miserable? I set down my bourbon and turned to face Tyler fully. You know what, kid? You're right. I did lie to myself. I told myself that Jessica was just going through a phase. I told myself that things would get better if I just gave her space. I told myself that 15 years of marriage meant something. It should have meant something. But it didn't. Not to her, and apparently not to you. So now we're here, having this conversation, because you want me to back off and let you continue your relationship with my wife. I want you to let her go. She doesn't love you anymore, Evan. Maybe she did once, but people change. Feelings change. You can't force someone to stay in a marriage they don't want to be in. I studied Tyler's face. He was sincere. I had to give him that. He actually believed that he and Jessica were star-crossed lovers being kept apart by a cruel and selfish husband. Tell me something, Tyler. What's your plan here? Let's say I agree to give Jessica a divorce. Let's say she's free to be with you. Then what? Then we build a life together. We get married, maybe have kids. We're happy. On what money? Tyler's confident expression flickered. What do you mean? I mean you just lost your job. Jessica's about to lose hers too, once her boss finds out she's been using company time and resources to conduct an affair. So what are you going to live on? Love? I'll find another job. Jessica will find another job. We'll figure it out. Will you? Because I did some research on you, Tyler. You filed for bankruptcy 3 years ago. You lost your house, your car, everything. Your ex-wife took you to the cleaners in the divorce. You've been working as a personal trainer for 2 years, and you still can't afford to live without financial help. What makes you think you can support a wife? That's none of your business. It became my business when you started sleeping with my wife and taking her money. It became my business when you started making plans for a future that involved destroying my marriage. Tyler finished his beer and signaled for another. His hands were shaking slightly. Look, he said, I know this is hard for you. I know it hurts to find out that your wife doesn't love you anymore. But taking it out on me isn't going to change anything. Jessica made her choice. Did she? Or did you manipulate a lonely, unhappy woman into thinking she had feelings for you? Nobody manipulated anybody. What Jessica and I have is real. What you have is a fantasy. You have stolen moments in hotel rooms and text messages full of promises you can't keep. You have 3 months of playing house while I paid the bills and Jessica pretended to be a faithful wife. That's not real, Tyler. That's an affair. It's more than that. Is it? Then why hasn't Jessica filed for divorce? Why hasn't she moved out? Why hasn't she chosen you over me? Tyler didn't answer. I'll tell you why, I continued. Because deep down, Jessica knows that what you're offering isn't real. You're offering excitement and passion and all the things that feel good in the moment. But you're not offering stability. You're not offering security. You're not offering a future that makes sense. You're wrong. Am I? Then why are you here, Tyler? Why are you asking me to back off instead of just waiting for Jessica to leave me for you? Tyler's second beer arrived. He took a long drink before answering. Because you're making things difficult for her. You're making her feel guilty and confused. She needs space to figure out what she wants. She's had 3 months to figure out what she wants. If she wanted to be with you, she'd be with you. The fact that she's still living in my house and sleeping in my bed tells me everything I need to know about how serious she is about your relationship. She's scared. She's worried about Maya, about the divorce, about starting over. That doesn't mean she doesn't love me. I looked at this kid, and that's what he was really, just a kid who thought he understood how the world worked and felt something that might have been pity. Tyler, I said, let me explain something to you about Jessica. My wife is not the kind of woman who stays in a situation she doesn't want to be in. If she wanted out of our marriage, she'd be out. The fact that she's still there, still trying to have it both ways, tells me that she's not ready to give up what we have for what you're offering. That's not true. Isn't it? When was the last time Jessica talked about introducing you to Maya? When was the last time she talked about moving in with you? When was the last time she did anything that suggested she was serious about a future with you? Tyler was quiet. I'll tell you what Jessica's been doing, I said. She's been keeping you as a backup plan, someone to make her feel young and desirable while she figured out whether she really wanted to blow up her life. And now that she's been caught, she's trying to figure out how to minimize the damage. You're lying. Am I? Then why did she tell you yesterday that you needed to cool things off? Why didn't she tell you that she was ready to leave me and be with you? Tyler's face was red now, whether from anger or embarrassment, I couldn't tell. She's confused right now, he said. She needs time. No, Tyler, she's not confused. She's calculating. She's trying to figure out whether she can salvage her marriage or whether she needs to commit to you. And right now, I'm not looking like such a bad option compared to an unemployed personal trainer with a bankruptcy record. Tyler stood up abruptly, his stool scraping against the floor. You're a bastard, he said. Maybe, but I'm a bastard with a house and a business and 15 years of shared history with Jessica. What are you? Tyler looked like he wanted to hit me. His hands were clenched into fists and there was rage in his eyes. But he was smart enough to know that starting a fight in a bar would only make his situation worse. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. Tyler threw a $10 bill on the bar and walked out. I finished my bourbon and ordered another, thinking about what came next. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Tyler called me. He said you two talked. We need to discuss this when you get home. I texted back, nothing to discuss. Tyler and I understand each other now. Then I turned off my phone and ordered a third bourbon. Tomorrow, I was going to finish what I'd started. But tonight, I was going to sit in this bar and think about the 15 years I'd wasted on a woman who'd never really loved me at all. I came home to find Jessica waiting for me in the living room. She'd changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a sweater, and she had that look on her face that meant she was preparing for battle. "We need to talk," she said, before I'd even closed the front door. "Do we?" I hung up my jacket and walked to the kitchen to get a glass of water. The bourbon had left me with a slight headache, and I wanted a clear head for whatever was coming next. Jessica followed me. "Tyler told me about your conversation tonight." "Did he? What did he tell you?" "He said you were cruel. He said you tried to humiliate him." I leaned against the kitchen counter and looked at my wife. I told him the truth. If he found that humiliating, that's not my problem. The truth according to you. The truth according to reality. Tyler is unemployed, broke, and living in a fantasy where he thinks you're going to leave me for him. I simply pointed out that the math doesn't add up. Jessica's face flushed. "It's not about money, Evan." "Isn't it? Because Tyler seemed pretty concerned about his financial situation, and you've been pretty concerned about helping him with it." "I helped him because I cared about him, because he was going through a difficult time." "You helped him because you thought you were going to be with him, and you wanted to make sure he could afford the lifestyle you're accustomed to, but now that reality is setting in, you're realizing that Tyler can't give you what I can." "That's not true. Then prove it. Move out. File for divorce. Go be with Tyler." Jessica stared at me. "Just like that?" "Just like that. If you love him, if you want a future with him, if this marriage is really over, then end it. Stop trying to have it both ways." "It's not that simple." "It is that simple. You're making it complicated because you don't want to give up what you have with me for what Tyler's offering. You want the excitement of an affair without the consequences of a divorce." "That's not fair." "Fair?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been talking to me about your unhappiness before you started sleeping with someone else. Fair would have been marriage counseling. Fair would have been honesty. I tried to talk to you. You never listened." "When? When did you try to talk to me about problems in our marriage?" Jessica was quiet for a moment. "It wasn't one conversation. It was 1,000 little moments where you chose work over me, where you chose your computer over spending time with me, where you made it clear that I wasn't a priority. So you decided to make Tyler a priority instead. I decided to find someone who made me feel valued. And now? Do you still feel valued? Because Tyler seemed pretty shaken up tonight. He seemed like a man who's realizing that his sugar mama might not be as committed as he thought. Stop calling me that. What would you prefer? Girlfriend, lover, mistress? Because you're certainly not acting like a wife." Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "Why are you being so cruel?" "I'm not being cruel, Jessica. I'm being honest. For the first time in years, I'm telling you exactly what I think, instead of trying to keep the peace. This isn't you, Evan. This isn't who you are. You're right. The man you married was a pushover who let you walk all over him for years. The man you married was so desperate to keep you happy that he ignored his own needs and his own dignity. But that man is gone. What happened to him? You destroyed him. You destroyed him when you decided that 15 years of marriage meant less to you than 3 months with a personal trainer. You destroyed him when you let another man pretend to be your husband. You destroyed him when you started planning a future that didn't include him." Jessica was crying now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no desire to comfort her, no urge to take back my words. "So what happens now?" she asked. Now you make a choice. A real choice. Either you end things with Tyler completely, and I mean completely, no contact, no friendship, no nothing, and we try to rebuild our marriage, or you admit that this marriage is over and we start divorce proceedings. And if I choose to try to rebuild our marriage, then you're going to have to earn back my trust. You're going to have to prove that you're committed to me and to our family. You're going to have to accept that things will never be the same between us. What does that mean? It means no more girls' nights with Sabrina. It means no more gym memberships. It means complete transparency about where you are and who you're with. It means couples counseling and individual therapy and whatever else it takes to fix what you broke. That sounds like a prison sentence. It sounds like the consequences of your choices. You wanted to act like a single woman while enjoying the benefits of being married. Now, you get to choose which one you actually want to be. Jessica wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. And if I choose divorce, then we'll handle it like adults. We'll split our assets, work out custody arrangements for Maya, and move on with our lives. But understand this. If you choose divorce, there's no going back. I won't be your backup plan. I won't be here waiting for you if things don't work out with Tyler or whoever comes after Tyler. You'd really do that? You'd really let me go? I looked at my wife, really looked at her, and realized that I already had let her go. Somewhere in the past few days, between discovering her affair and watching her try to manipulate the situation to her advantage, I'd stopped loving her, not stopped caring about her, not stopped wanting the best for her, but stopped being in love with her. Jessica, I said quietly, I already have let you go. The question is whether you're ready to let me go too. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to figure out if I was bluffing, trying to determine if this was just a negotiating tactic or if I really meant what I was saying. I need time to think, she said finally. You have until Sunday. That's 3 days. On Sunday night, you tell me what you've decided, and we move forward from there. And in the meantime? In the meantime, you sleep in the guest room. You don't contact Tyler. You don't discuss this with Sabrina or anyone else. You figure out what you want your life to look like, and you make your choice. Jessica nodded slowly. Okay. Okay. She started to leave the kitchen, then turned back. Evan, what if I choose to try to save our marriage? What if I do everything you're asking? Will you be able to forgive me? I considered the question seriously. Could I forgive her? Could I trust her again? Could I love her the way I used to? I don't know, I said honestly. But I'm willing to try if you are. And if I choose divorce? Then I hope you'll be happy. I really do. But I also hope you understand that actions have consequences, and some things can't be undone. Jessica nodded again and left the kitchen. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, heard the guest room door close, heard the house settle into an unfamiliar quiet. I poured myself a glass of water and sat at the kitchen table, thinking about the conversation I'd just had. For the first time in years, I'd been completely honest with Jessica about how I felt and what I wanted. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your wife made her choice a long time ago. You're just too blind to see it. T. Tyler apparently wasn't ready to give up, but that was his problem, not mine. I'd said what I needed to say to both of them. Now it was time to let the chips fall where they may. I deleted the text without responding and went upstairs to my bedroom. Our bedroom. The room that Jessica and I had shared for 8 years, where we'd made love and fought and dreamed about our future together. Tomorrow, I'd start preparing for whatever came next. But tonight, I was going to sleep alone in my own bed and try to remember what it felt like to have some dignity. Sunday came faster than I expected. Jessica had spent the weekend moving around the house like a ghost, present, but not really there. She made breakfast for Maya, did laundry, worked in her home office, all while avoiding any meaningful conversation with me. Maya noticed, of course. Teenagers had radar for family tension. "Are you and Mom fighting?" she asked me Saturday afternoon while Jessica was at the grocery store. "We're working through some issues," I said. "What kind of issues?" I looked at my daughter, this smart, beautiful 17-year-old who was about to have her world turned upside down, and tried to figure out how much truth she could handle. "Adult issues," I said finally. "Nothing for you to worry about. That's what adults always say when they're getting divorced." The word hung in the air between us like a curse. "Are you getting divorced?" Maya asked quietly. "I don't know yet, sweetheart. I hope not. But I honestly don't know." Maya was quiet for a moment. "Is it because of Mom's trainer?" "What do you know about Mom's trainer?" "I'm not stupid, Dad. I know Mom's been weird lately. She's been on her phone all the time. She's been going out more. She's been different. And I heard you guys fighting the other night." "What did you hear?" "Enough." Maya looked at me with eyes that were suddenly much older than 17. "Tyler, right? The guy from her gym?" I sat down next to my daughter on the couch. "Maya, I need you to understand something. Whatever happens between your mom and me, it's not your fault. And no matter what, we both love you more than anything in the world." "But you are getting divorced." "Maybe. Probably. I don't know yet." Maya started crying then, and I held her while she sobbed into my shoulder. My smart, strong daughter who was about to learn that her parents were just flawed human beings who'd made a mess of their lives. "I'm sorry, baby," I whispered. "I'm so sorry." Sunday evening came like a deadline. Jessica found me in my office at exactly 8 p.m., like we'd scheduled a business meeting. "I've made my decision," she said. I saved the document I was working on and turned to face her. She looked tired, older somehow, like the weekend had aged her. "Okay. I want to try to save our marriage." I felt something that might have been relief, but it was mixed with so many other emotions that I couldn't be sure. "What about Tyler?" I ended it, completely. I told him I was committed to working things out with you and that he needed to move on. "How did he take that?" Jessica's face darkened. "Not well. He said some things. He's not the person I thought he was." "What kind of things?" "He called me a coward. He said I was choosing money over love. He said I'd regret it." "Anything else?" "He said he wasn't going to just disappear. He said he'd invested too much in our relationship to just walk away." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What does that mean?" "I don't know. But Evan, I'm scared. Tyler's not handling this well, and I'm worried about what he might do." "Do you think he'd hurt you?" "I don't think so. But I think he might try to cause problems for us, for our marriage, for your business, for our family." "Let me worry about Tyler. What about Sabrina?" Jessica looked down at her hands. "I told her that I was ending things with Tyler and trying to work things out with you. She said I was making a mistake. And I told her that maybe we needed some space, that I needed to focus on my marriage without outside influences." "Good. What about your job?" "I don't know yet. I don't think anyone at the office knows about Tyler, but if it gets out..." "It might get out. You need to be prepared for that." Jessica nodded. "I know. I'm ready to deal with the consequences." We sat in silence for a moment. Then Jessica said, "Evan, I need you to know that I'm sorry. Not just sorry that I got caught, but sorry that I hurt you. Sorry that I lied to you. Sorry that I threw away something good for something that was never real." "Why did you do it, Jess? Really? Not the reasons you gave me before, but the real reason." She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because I was scared that I was getting old. Because I was scared that the best parts of my life were behind me. Because Tyler made me feel young and desirable and alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. And now? Now I realize that feeling young and alive isn't worth destroying everything real in your life. Now I realize that excitement isn't the same thing as happiness. I studied my wife's face, looking for signs of deception or manipulation, but all I saw was exhaustion and regret. "Okay," I said. "Okay? Okay, we'll try. But Jessica, I meant what I said about the conditions. Complete transparency, couples counseling, no contact with Tyler or Sabrina, and if you ever lie to me again about anything, we're done. No second chances, no explanations, no forgiveness. We're done." "I understand. And you need to understand that it's going to take time for me to trust you again. It's going to take time for me to forgive you. There are going to be days when I look at you and remember what you did, and I'm going to be angry all over again. I understand that too. Do you? Because this isn't going to be easy, Jess. It would be easier to just get divorced and start over. It would be easier for both of us." "I know. But I don't want easy. I want us." I looked at my wife, this woman I'd loved for 20 years and married for 15, and made a decision that surprised me. "Okay," I said. "Let's try." Jessica started crying then, but these tears were different from the ones she'd cried before. These were tears of relief and gratitude and hope. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for giving us another chance." "Don't thank me yet," I said. "Thank me in a year if we make it through this." She nodded and wiped her eyes. "What do we do now?" "Now we tell Maya that we're going to work things out. Now we make an appointment with a marriage counselor. Now we start the hard work of rebuilding what you tore down." "And Tyler?" "Tyler is no longer our problem. Tyler is Tyler's problem." But even as I said it, I had a feeling that Tyler wasn't going to make things that easy for us. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "She'll never love you the way she loved me. This isn't over." I showed the text to Jessica. Her face went white. "He's not going to let this go," she said. "Then we'll deal with it. Together." I deleted the text and put my arm around my wife. For the first time in months, she leaned into me instead of pulling away. "Together," she agreed. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Tyler Brennan was about to become a much bigger problem than either of us realized. And I was right. 3 weeks later, Tyler made his move. Jessica and I had been working with a marriage counselor named Dr. Patricia Williams, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s who specialized in infidelity recovery. The sessions were brutal but productive. Jessica was learning to take responsibility for her choices, and I was learning to express my anger in constructive ways instead of just letting it fester. We'd told Maya that we were working things out, and she'd been cautiously optimistic. She was still hurt and confused, but she was old enough to understand that marriages required work and that her parents were committed to doing that work. Things were far from perfect, but they were improving. Jessica had been completely transparent about her whereabouts, her phone, her email. She'd started seeing an individual therapist to work through the issues that had led to her affair. She'd even started cooking dinner again, something she hadn't done in months. I was beginning to think that maybe we could actually rebuild our marriage. Then Tyler decided to blow it all up. It started with an email to my biggest client, Henderson Manufacturing. The subject line was, "Concerning Evan Martinez and Martinez Consulting." The email was anonymous, but I knew who'd sent it. "I thought you should know that Evan Martinez has been billing you for services not rendered. I have documentation showing that he's been charging you for full days of work while spending his time following his wife around and harassing her boyfriend. He's also been using company equipment to hack into personal accounts and steal private information. You might want to audit his invoices and consider whether this is the kind of person you want handling your network security." The email was full of lies, but it was crafted cleverly enough to raise questions. Henderson Manufacturing had been my client for 5 years, and they'd always been satisfied with my work. But corporate executives were paranoid about liability, and even false accusations could be enough to make them nervous. I got the call from Jim Henderson at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. "Evan, we need to talk. Can you come in this afternoon?" "Of course. What's this about?" "I'd rather discuss it in person." I knew it was about the email before I even walked into Henderson's office. Jim was sitting behind his desk with a printed copy of Tyler's lies in front of him. "Evan," he said without preamble, "I got an email yesterday that raised some concerns about your billing practices." "I see. Can I ask what the email said?" Jim handed me the printout. I read it carefully, noting the specific lies and the clever way they were woven together with just enough truth to seem credible. "This is completely false," I said when I finished reading. I figured it probably was, but I have to ask, have you been dealing with some personal issues lately? You seemed distracted during our last few meetings. I looked at Jim Henderson, a man I'd worked with for 5 years, a man who'd trusted me with his company's most sensitive data, and made a decision. "Jim, I'm going to tell you something in confidence, and then you can decide whether you still want to work with me." "Okay." "My wife had an affair. I found out about it 3 weeks ago. The man she was seeing is trying to destroy my business as revenge for me ending their relationship." Jim's eyebrows went up. "Jesus, Evan, I'm sorry. The accusations in this email are false, but they're based on things that actually happened. I did follow my wife to confirm that she was cheating. I did recover text messages from her phone to prove the affair, but I never billed you for that time, and I never used your equipment to do it." "Can you prove that?" "I can show you my time logs for the past 3 months. I can show you that every hour I billed you was legitimate work on your systems. I can show you that I used my own equipment and my own time to investigate my wife's affair." Jim nodded slowly. "And the person who sent this email?" "Tyler Brennan, my wife's former trainer. He lost his job when the gym found out about their inappropriate relationship, and now he's trying to destroy my business." "Do you have proof that he sent it?" "Not direct proof, but I can show you that he's been harassing me and my wife since she ended their relationship. I can show you text messages where he threatened to cause problems for our family." Jim was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he said, "Evan, I've worked with you for 5 years. You've always been professional, reliable, and honest. I'm not going to let some anonymous email destroy that relationship." "Thank you, Jim. That means a lot. But I do need you to provide documentation that your billing has been accurate, just to cover my ass with the board." "Of course. I'll have everything to you by tomorrow morning." I left Henderson Manufacturing, feeling relieved but also angry. Tyler had crossed a line by attacking my business. He'd moved from being Jessica's problem to being my problem, and I didn't like having problems. I called Jessica from my car. "Tyler sent an email to Henderson Manufacturing," I said when she answered. "What? What kind of email?" I read her the email. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Evan, I'm so sorry. This is my fault." "No, it's Tyler's fault, but we need to deal with it before he escalates further." "What do you want to do?" "I want to end this, permanently." That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done since my Army days. I went on the offensive. I started by filing a police report for harassment. Tyler's text messages and the email to my client were enough to establish a pattern of behavior. The police couldn't do much with an anonymous email, but they could document the harassment and issue a warning. Then I got serious about destroying Tyler's life. I started with his finances. Tyler was living in an expensive apartment that he couldn't afford on unemployment benefits. A little digging revealed that he'd been lying on his rental application about his income and employment status. An anonymous tip to his landlord about his false application resulted in an eviction notice. Next, I went after his reputation. Tyler had been trying to rebuild his career as a freelance personal trainer, advertising his services on social media and fitness websites. I created several fake accounts and started leaving reviews about his inappropriate behavior with female clients and his unprofessional conduct. Within a week, his online presence was destroyed. But I wasn't finished. I'd learned from Tyler's social media that he was dating someone new, a woman named Kelly, who worked as a nurse at the local hospital. Tyler had been posting photos of expensive dinners and weekend getaways, all paid for with money he'd borrowed from Jessica during their affair. I sent Kelly an anonymous message with copies of Tyler's text messages to Jessica, including the ones where he talked about their future together and the ones where he'd threatened our family. I included a note explaining that Tyler had been in a relationship with a married woman until 3 weeks ago and had been using money from that relationship to fund his lifestyle. Kelly broke up with Tyler publicly, posting on Facebook about lying, cheating losers who use women for money. The post was shared dozens of times by their mutual friends. Within 2 weeks, Tyler had lost his apartment, his girlfriend, his reputation, and any chance of rebuilding his career in the local fitness industry. But he still wasn't finished with us. The final confrontation came on a Friday night. Jessica and I were coming home from a dinner date, part of our effort to rebuild our relationship, when we found Tyler waiting in our driveway. He looked terrible, unshaven, wearing clothes that looked like he'd slept in them, with the kind of wild look in his eyes that suggested he'd been drinking or worse. "We need to talk," he said as we got out of our car. "No, we don't," I said. "You need to leave. Now." "This is all your fault," Tyler said, ignoring me and focusing on Jessica. "You ruined my life. You made me think we had a future together, and then you threw me away like garbage." "Tyler, please," Jessica said. "Just go. Don't make this worse." "Worse? How could it be worse? I lost my job, my apartment, my girlfriend. I lost everything because of you." "You lost everything because of your own choices," I said. "You chose to sleep with a married woman. You chose to take her money. You chose to harass us when she ended it. Nobody forced you to do any of that." Tyler turned to me with hatred in his eyes. "You think you won? You think you got your wife back and everything's fine now?" "I think you need to leave before I call the police." "She'll never love you the way she loved me," Tyler said. "She'll never want you the way she wanted me. Every time she looks at you, she'll remember what it felt like to be with a real man." That was when I hit him. I hadn't planned to. I'd been trying to de-escalate the situation, trying to get him to leave without violence. But something about the way he said those words, something about the look on his face when he said them, made me snap. I hit him once, a straight right hand to the jaw that I'd learned in basic training 20 years ago. Tyler went down like a sack of potatoes. "Stay down," I told him. "Stay down and walk away, or I'll finish what you started." Tyler looked up at me from the ground, a thin line of red trailing from his split lip, and I saw something change in his eyes. The anger was still there, but now it was mixed with fear. Fear of me, fear of what I was capable of. "This isn't over," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Yes, it is," I said. "It's over because if you contact me or my wife again, if you come to our house again, if you so much as drive down our street, I'll destroy you completely. Do you understand me?" Tyler got to his feet slowly, holding his jaw. "Do you understand me?" I repeated. He nodded. "Good. Now get out of here." Tyler walked to his car without another word. As he drove away, I realized that my hands were shaking. Jessica put her arm around me. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Are you?" "I'm scared. What if he comes back? What if he calls the police about you hitting him?" "He won't do either of those things. Tyler's a coward. He only attacks when he thinks he has the advantage. Now he knows he doesn't." We went inside and I poured myself a bourbon. My first drink in 3 weeks. Jessica and I had agreed to cut back on alcohol as part of our marriage recovery. "You were different out there," Jessica said. "I've never seen you like that." "Like what?" "Dangerous. Like you could really hurt someone if you had to." I took a sip of bourbon and thought about her words. "I spent 4 years in the Army, Jess. I was trained to hurt people when necessary. I just never thought it would be necessary in my suburban driveway. Do you think he'll leave us alone now?" I think Tyler finally understands that there are consequences for his actions. I think he finally understands that I'm not the pushover he thought I was. Jessica was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry I brought this into our lives. I'm sorry my mistakes put you in a position where you had to do that. Your mistakes didn't put me in that position. Tyler's choices did. But it's over now. He's gone, and he's not coming back. I was right. We never saw Tyler Brennan again. I heard through the gym grapevine that he'd left town a few days after our confrontation, probably to start over somewhere else where his reputation hadn't been destroyed. 6 months later, Jessica and I renewed our wedding vows in a small ceremony with just Maya and a few close friends. It wasn't the same as our original marriage. Too much had happened for that. But it was something new, something built on honesty and hard work, and a deeper understanding of what we meant to each other. Maya gave a speech at the ceremony about second chances and the importance of fighting for the people you love. She was 18 by then, getting ready to start college, and she'd grown up a lot during our marital crisis. A year ago, I thought my parents were getting divorced, she said. I thought our family was falling apart. But I learned that sometimes things have to break before they can be fixed properly. And sometimes the people who love you the most are the ones who are willing to do the hard work of putting the pieces back together. As I listened to my daughter speak, I thought about Tyler Brennan and wondered where he was, what he was doing, whether he'd learned anything from his experience with our family. I hoped he had. I hoped he'd learned that actions have consequences, that other people's marriages aren't playgrounds for your fantasies, and that some men will only be pushed so far before they push back. But mostly, I hoped he'd learned to stay away from married women and the husbands who love them. Because next time, he might not be lucky enough to walk away with just a split lip.